Advanced 360 Education is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's Advanced 360 Education. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you again on another episode. We got a guest with us today, tremendous guest. He's in a bow tie. I love people that wear bow ties. I can't tie one. I could never. I don't know if there's anybody else out there challenged, bow tie challenged, such as me, that no matter how many times I tried, even looking it up on YouTube, I still fail to be able to tie a bow tie. If there is a metal clip on it, I can wear it, and but then I feel like I'm shunned by my peers who actually know how to tie a bow tie. So I stay away from bow ties. Anyway, I'm digressing. As you know, the EdUp Experience, we're here. One of our goals is to, and really our mission is to champion lifelong learning, no matter the path someone chooses, and to bring the most important voices here onto the podcast. And one of the most subcategories within higher education, one of the most important subcategories within higher ed, is our community colleges. We have a guest from a community college here today, president from community college. We've interviewed like 40 community college presidents, and never has there been more importance on and momentum for today's community colleges and the important work they do during and now post, knock on wood, coronavirus. So I'm bringing on a co-host that you've heard before. You've heard her before. She can go off the rails sometimes. We got to keep her together. I want to, see her. She's laughing already and trying to say something.
This is so fun.
Okay, hold on, Eric. I'll bring you in a second.
This is so fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, her name is Erica Leodice, and she's Executive Director at the Alliance for Innovation and Transformation. Erica, what's going on?
Oh, I got a round of applause today. That's better than the wah wah that I normally get.
So fun.
I don't know if it sounds exactly like you, but when I found this
is so fun.
I was like, I think that's Erica's voice. I think I pulled that off a previous episode.
Let's see. This is so fun.
This is so fun.
That's pretty accurate. I gotta be honest. There we go.
You've got quite an ear, Joe.
Yeah, that's what we do here at the EdUp Experience.
This is so fun.
Anyway,
this is so fun. I feel like this is going to turn into an EDM song. Ready?
It could. Let's if we get a little boom.
This is
exactly.
So fun.
Yeah, it could. It totally
this is
could.
so fun.
I got other surprises for you today. But before we literally destroy this episode for the worse, Erica, you and I talking about sound effects, let's bring in our guest. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, bow tie and all. He is Dr. Gregg Busch. He's president of Mesalands Community College. Gregg, what is happening?
Wow, that's the biggest applause I think I've ever received. Thank you.
Except when you step
Pleased
into
to
your
be
living
here.
room, of course, right? And you step into your living room, I'm sure your family gives you that applause.
I don't know.
How are you?
We're having a great day here in Tucumcari, New Mexico. How are you?
Well, you can hear what's happening with Erica and I.
Hold on tight. This is gonna be a bumpy ride.
It's good, but we're gonna have fun along the way. Gregg, let's level set for the audience, for people that and it's Mesalands. I'm saying it right?
You are correct. Mesalands.
Mesalands Community College. So where is it? How do you do the work that you do? And let's kind of just talk about it, and we'll go from there.
Sure, absolutely. I'm proud to talk about Mesalands. Mesalands Community College is located in historic Tucumcari, New Mexico, on historic Route 66. So it's actually attracts a number of tourists to our area. So we have a steady stream of people coming through. But Mesalands is a very unique community college. We offer a number of unique programs that you won't find in other places in the country. And we are a residential community college. We are a Hispanic serving institution, as well as a rural serving institution. We're located approximately halfway between Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Amarillo, Texas. We serve eastern New Mexico and sort of northeastern New Mexico as well. And yeah, we're a great little school out here doing some amazing things.
Amazing.
You said it. So, Gregg, first question I have: when you say you're a rural serving institution, is that a designation, or is that you saying that that's the audience that you serve?
It is becoming a more recognized designation under minority serving institutions. So when we talk about minority serving institutions, you're familiar with other categories, like you'll hear the term HBCU, which is historically black colleges and universities, or you'll hear HSIs, which are Hispanic serving institutions. But there's a growing number of recognition being given to institutions who serve exclusively rural or largely rural populations that has a definition to it. So we meet that designation, and we embrace it. We serve a lot of rural students from large ranch communities. We serve indigenous populations of Native Americans, and so these people may live in very rural areas and reservations and so forth. So so it's not only descriptive, but it is becoming a much more acknowledged and recognized designation, and the government is beginning to recognize that and include it within the services that they provide to minority serving institutions.
It's interesting. Before I kick it over to you, Erica, I do want to ask, so that designation, or at least the recognition that it's like when these designations come to be, it's because it's highlighting and then cementing the importance of serving people from this population. So rural being a more geographical descriptor than a demographic one. How is it different to serve a student from a rural background? What are those challenges that you face that you have to call out when you go, you know what? When I was in the big city, or when you're in an urban center, it's a lot different. Now, how are the rural students different? What do you have to do at Mesa Lands to properly serve that population of students?
I think the interesting part of answering that question is to point out that I am actually a first generation college student myself who came from a rural community. So I can answer that question, not just as a president, but also from the student perspective as well. And when students are coming from rural areas, they face a unique set of challenges to be successful. The ability to access services, being able to come to the college is often farther for them, which creates geographical barriers. For example, in my experience as a young student, I drove 3.5 hours each way to finish my doctoral degree. And so it's because I was geographically isolated. I'm originally from West Virginia. And so it was, I had faced a lot of challenges being a rural student. Additionally, the rural students have other difficulties. They often suffer from the lack of good broadband availability. And without broadband, it also limits our ability to extend our classes to the rural areas. So we have to deal with creating interventions and solutions to be able to expand education to the rural populations and to be able to reach out to them. So it requires us to be much more innovative and creative. It requires us to look at the unique challenges that they face and then build the solutions to make education accessible to them.
Well said. I mean, there's a lot of challenge in there. We take broadband internet access for granted. It's like walk into Starbucks, anywhere you have internet. We forget a lot of students don't. Kick it over to you, Erica.
This is so fun.
What an intro.
Thanks for saying so.
Yeah, well, I was reading a bit about your background, Greg, before this interview, and I learned that you grew up in rural Appalachia by your mother, and you were raised by your mother and your grandmother. You went to school in a one-room schoolhouse, and you had said that you credit so much of your success to your grandmother and the values she instilled in you. Can you tell us a little bit about her and some of those values and how that kind of led you to where you are today?
I think there should be a buzz there that says "wow," because that is truly at the essence of everything that I do. Was the message that was conveyed to me and taught to me by my grandmother, who was a very traditional Appalachian woman who was progressive for her time, but she had an 8th grade education, which was standard at the time for for people in her generation. But my grandmother emphasized a couple of things, and that was really to focus on making sure that we reach out and treat people and bring people into the fold, that we're here to support each other. And for people who come from Appalachia, we understand that because we rely a lot on our community, on our local community, because again, of the geography of the area, that makes us somewhat isolated in various pockets around the Appalachian region. So this was part of life, which was to support and to help people. And so my grandmother instilled in me that my job, my responsibility to my community was to always help others and put the focus on them. And she further said, as an Appalachian woman living in under difficult conditions, you can't allow little things to get in your way. You have to, my grandmother would say that, when you come to a bump in the road, you have to figure out how to get over it. And that's really important. So it's really guided everything in my career and in my life, is that just because we run into an obstacle, as you've mentioned, rural education, for example, it doesn't mean we throw up our hands and quit and say, oh, well, we can't get education to those people. Instead, we look at that as a bump in the road, and we become creative, and we do things like put out, hotspots around in rural areas that allows our rural students to do that. So again, it was my mother and my grandmother's influence that meant so much about treating and everyone the same, and there was no distinction, that we all are in this together, and that we really treat each other the way we want to be treated. And that's really the fundamental, one of the fundamental issues here as president of this college, is that I am very emphatic that my campus culture is mutually respectful. It is as important to be mutually respectful as it is to be a great scholar. And so I consider that critical in the operation of the institution. So that, plain and simple, comes right out of my grandmother.
Wow.
And
That's amazing. It sounds like that must really now translate into a lot of the work that you're doing with trying to eliminate barriers, and some of the work you're doing in educational reform. Can you tell us about Complete College Arizona and some of the work you're doing with the White House?
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, I became engaged in working with Complete College America as after the White House summits of about 2009, when we recognized that we needed to reform higher education. And so I became real involved on the national level, working in the reform of higher ed, and looking at, instead of counting and looking at our success at colleges by the number of people sitting in seats, we actually began to focus on what was really at the root, which was focusing on student success. Are they successful, and are they completing what what their goal is? And so I began in Ohio, and I worked in Ohio, and then worked in various states, and I've worked with Complete College America as a subject matter expert on best practices that have been developed out of the Columbia University Teachers College, among others. And so eventually I was recruited into Arizona, and each state by state, was aligning with Complete College America's national reforms in higher education. At that point in time, Arizona had not signed on. And so it became my responsibility, and I was the team lead for the state of Arizona, to implement these reforms. And so we were very successful, worked with the colleges and universities of Arizona to implement a number of reforms in the system there, which now impacts over 400,000 students in Arizona. And Arizona became the 46th state to join join Complete College America and the consortium. So after completing that, then I later ended here as president at Mesa Lands. So I continue to work with Complete College America, and last week I was appointed, I presented with Complete College America and the Gates Foundation on improving student success for HBCUs and minority serving institutions like the HSIs and the rural serving institutions. And so I spoke at the national convening on how we can learn how to improve digital learning and improve student success for minority serving institutions. So my work is continuing and has been recognized and continues to work with Complete College America as well as now the Gates Foundation. And with regard to your question in the White House, so I have had the opportunity and have been very blessed to participate in the rural briefings and consultations regarding the expansion of improving rural education, which has been a focus of the White House to expand opportunities to rural service areas. So I generally participate with rural briefings or briefings with the White House at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Level up.
And as well as be, I throw them questions and, curveballs, and we're making some great progress there, I believe as well. And I believe that the Undersecretary Cavall has recognized that recently in one of our conversations, that what we're providing is leading to a new and better future for rural students. So.
Wow.
That's incredible. Sorry, one thing, just that this
go.
year at AFIT, one of our learning partners has introduced the term ROI. Now, typically we hear ROI and we think return on investment, but the way that she talks about it is ripple of impact. And it sounds like you have quite a ripple of impact in your world and the impact that you're having on higher education. That's really inspiring.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I like to hope that that my work will, have a positive impact on the students and all students, but most especially those who live in an equity gap where they're not as successful based upon some type of marginalized concern in their lives. And so much like myself, coming from a rural area with limited educational opportunities, and then so I hope that that's the case, and I hope that that leads to that ripple effect. But at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about what we do to be able to improve the quality and the opportunity, the student success, the ability to break down barriers to their access, and then to provide the student support they need to make sure that they complete. That's the end goal.
What was that whole ROI thing again there, Erica?
What?
Joe, it's ripple of impact.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, that was introduced to us by Jen Lim, the CEO of Delivering Happiness. She was on your show a few weeks ago.
She was on our show. I'm gonna have to ask her about that. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a great term. I love the term. I think that it really exemplifies what community colleges are doing in general.
Absolutely.
I mean, we talk about community colleges. That's exactly what our mission is to we serve students from about 6 different categories. So we're very much unlike universities in that regard. And because we do have such a diverse type of student body and people that we serve, that ripple effect that you're referring to is precisely what it's about. So yeah, I love the term.
100%.
agreed. I will say, Gregg, I don't know if anybody noticed it, and I'm going to give myself a shout out here because this, is my podcast, so I have to take a little bit of the glory. But you did say when Erica asked you that very difficult and heartwarming question about your grandmother. You asked for a wow button, and I had to go find it, but I did put it in there at the end. I don't know if you heard it.
Wow.
It came right at the end instead of the beginning. So you called me out, but I just want to know.
Yeah, I would call you out if if I went to sound effects. So
Wow.
It was there. It was there. It was there. Well, you know what time it is, Erica. Greg, you don't know what time it is, but we're going to tell you. It's time for Higher Ed Word Association with your contestants, Greg Busch and Erica Leodice. She made me say it that way. She makes me say her last name that way. She's played before, and this is what Erica has to say.
This is so fun.
Thank you, Erica. I got to be honest. I find these buttons that are funny, and then I start to associate them with someone. I'm like, can I use that in a future episode, or does it have to be my Erica button? And I'm only giving you a hard time, but it is kind of funny.
This is so fun.
Thank you, Erica.
Well, it's better than the 100% guy, the real deep-throated.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking that if I don't have you come co-host, like if you're supposed to be co-hosting with me one day and you can't be here, that I would just talk to you. And every time you said something, it would be,
This is so fun.
I'd be like, Erica, what do you think of the podcast today?
This is so fun.
Right. And I could totally do it without you being, anyway. Greg, this is where I give you a phrase or word, single word or phrase about higher ed or words we've used in higher education. You're giving me the first set of thoughts that come to your mind, and feel free to elaborate, because if you give me one word answers back, it makes for a very short higher ed word association game. I'm going to
It'd be so boring too. It'd be
boring.
It'd be time to turn off the podcast. So yeah.
Wrong.
We don't turn off the EdUp Experience podcast. Erica's going to get the first one, so you could get a sense of how this goes, and then we'll go to you for the rest, Greg. Here we go.
Great.
Erica, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I was going to hit the fun button again. But, soft skills.
Oh yeah.
Greg wants to go first.
Go ahead, go.
Yeah, I'm cool on this one. Yeah, because I'm actually working on changing that vernacular. I think the term soft skills is so essential into what we do, to the place that I don't refer to it as soft skills anymore. I refer to it as the professional skills. It's that ability to be able to communicate effectively, to be able to work with people from diverse populations. It's the ability to be able to show up to work on time, to understand your responsibilities. And so here at Mesalands, for example, we're exploring the opportunity to build that into our curriculum, not just into the regular classes, but also looking at mandatory civic engagement, which would actually emphasize soft skills by putting students out into work environments that would give them a chance to actually practice soft skills before they actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so love it. Professional skills in my world.
Erica, soft skills.
You know, the first thing I thought of when you said soft skills was obviously such a necessary set of skills. And I thought about, the pandemic and how it's really challenged so many people, especially those who are either just coming out of college or new to their career. It's challenged them in that area because showing up for work all of a sudden was very different, and being a team player and communicating was all just kind of turned on its ear. So that was the first thing I thought of when you said soft skills.
Sorry, Eric, I jumped onto you on that one. So
you know what, you seemed really passionate about it. So I was happy to let you go
ma'am.
first, and it gave me time to get my thoughts together.
He was ready for it. I almost had to hit this one.
Wait.
He was ready to go. Okay, here we go. Greg, you're sure you're ready?
I'm ready.
Free college.
Free college, 2 words, New Mexico. Okay. New Mexico now has free college for anybody residing in the state of New Mexico. For 1 year, you can get your degree, clear through your bachelor's degree completely free, thanks to our governor and the Secretary of Higher Education, Stephanie Rodriguez. We have built into the state here what's referred to as the Opportunity Scholars, and also our lottery scholarships, which now allows all students to who, as I said, who reside in New Mexico for that year prior to go to college for free. They get their tuition and fees, everything for free. And this is opening up doors because we also happen to be one of the in the lower quadrant of income states, and so this is a huge benefit to our students in being able to give them an opportunity to go to school and not have to worry about, number one, how they're going to pay for it, or number two, take out a whole bunch of student debt, which is crippling and one of the largest problems facing higher education today.
Love it. Erica, free college.
I hear that and I just think about this commitment to educating our workforce and changing lives.
Okay, here we go. Next one. Grit. Greg.
Grit is it's interesting that grit is the word today, because tonight, as we're recording this, is our commencement. And I just recorded a message for my graduates this year. And it was about grit. It was about grit of being able to, the stick-to-itiveness to persevere through a pandemic, to complete their educations. It was about grit of having to work out their lives while they're going to school and possibly working. It was about grit who puts their kids to bed and studies at night. It's about grit who seeks out that perseverance to improve their life and improve the quality of the life for their family and their community. And so today is a huge day of celebration here at Mesa Lands as we celebrate the student success. And that success came from what? Grit.
Cheers.
Love it. Erica, grit.
When I hear the word grit, I think of our members at AFIT, which are higher education leaders. And so many of these people came into this role and into this profession wanting to help students succeed. And what they got in the process was this whole other mountain of responsibilities that they maybe never even anticipated. Campus violence, social justice issues, the pandemic, the Great Resignation, enrollment challenges, so many things piled onto their plate. And yet they still keep coming to work every day asking, how can we do more for our students? How can we help students succeed? So I think that is a great example of grit.
Well, there you go. Greg, go.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just want to tag on that because, it made it, I think grit is really exemplified in what we see in our students. But we also have to realize the grit of the people here in higher education who had to adapt to a pandemic.
That was my adapting button to the pandemic.
Good? That's a terrific one because they had to change the ways they do things, and you have to be determined to fight through. And just as I mentioned earlier about my grandmother, who addressed me about dealing with grit and overcoming challenges, that's one of the things that I face in my personal life. I'm a president, but I'm also an ambassador for the Davis Finney Foundation for Parkinson's disease because I have Parkinson's disease. And so every day as I work to help and serve this college, I deal with a chronic illness. So you have to have grit to be able to do this. And that's just my story, but every person here has that story to make the students successful. And it's their grit as well.
Advanced 360 Education is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. Advanced 360 Education does not simply rely on instinct to make assumptions about audiences or key data points. Rather, through data intelligence, client strategies take on a higher level of effectiveness. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's 310-704-5369. That's Anthony Espinoza at Advanced 360 Education. That's pretty amazing, Greg. I will tell you that I would safely, because it's impossible for a co-host to win, safely declare you the winner of Higher Ed Word Association today.
I don't know. Erica was pretty good.
She is pretty good. Erica, over to you.
Well, so Greg, back to your background. One of the things I was reading about you was that you started as an entrepreneur, owner of 4 successful businesses. And so I was curious to know, how did you go from being an entrepreneur in your, I guess it was even in your teens, right? Teens and early 20s. How did that career path lead you to the higher education presidency?
Yeah, that's a fun story. So yeah, I grew up again, a very rural town, and my mother was the clerk at the local health department for the public health nurse, and so the short story is that I was 14 years old and I wanted to get a high school jacket in the classroom, and mother worked very hard, but I wanted to pay for it myself. So I decided I would go get a job. And so I rode my bike down and told mom I was going to go get a job. She was, where are you going to go? And I said, well, I don't know. And it's a small town. There's not a lot here. There's a gas station and there's a supermarket and there's a funeral home. And I said, everybody goes to the grocery store. I'm not really sure I can change a flat tire. So I'll try the funeral home. And so mother said, well, okay. And so the funny part of the story is I went back home and I put on my one and only suit and got on my bike and rode my bike to the funeral home and said to them, hey, I walked in the door and I said, hello, I'm Greg Busch and I'm here for a job. And we had a nice, wonderful chat. And she said, well, if I ever need you, I'll maybe give you a call. Well, when you're 14, that means you think you just got a job.
Nailed it. I just nailed that job interview.
I did. And anyway, so don't you know, 2 weeks later, she calls me and she has no idea how old I am. And her first task to me was to move cars. And I wasn't old enough to drive. And so, so anyway, I start working at this funeral home and I worked all through high school. But the funny part of that story is that in my off time, I'd ride down and see mom at the health department. And that public health nurse had a daughter who did the same thing. And so as nature goes, the two of us start hanging out, and we've been hanging out now for 40 years. So
I love that.
Yeah. So at
wait, you stayed friends for 40 years?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to connect those dots for Joe.
Than that. At about 18 years old, we got married, and
oh, love it.
So, yeah, and she became a vice president of a community college as well. We're all
that's irony right there.
And
that's coincidental, maybe, that you get married and then you both end up in community colleges.
We did, yeah, and both of my children are also community college alumni. My son is also an associate professor of political science at a community college and tenured in Illinois. So it's sort of the family business now, and yeah. So
when you have a family business helping other people, I'd say it's pretty strong and worthwhile endeavor.
To finish your question, Erica, how it ended up. So yeah, we ended up opening our own funeral home at 21 years old. We were the youngest owners in the nation. We ran it for 20 years. I kept going to school all along the way. Graduated from West Virginia University School of Medicine. I became a medical examiner, did other things. And the longer you stay in school, eventually they start asking you to teach. So I ended up in this position where I was offered to teach some adjunct classes, and it just took off from there. I became a full-time faculty member, and then I was very lucky over the next few years as a faculty member. I was professor of the year for my first 3 years of teaching for West Virginia University at Parkersburg, and then I won the national award for teaching and leadership, and then I got named Cambridge University in the top 2,000. Yeah, so
it's pretty amazing, because I feel like I read in your biography that somebody at one point told you weren't college material at all. So wow, that person was a little off base.
Yes. So yes, in high school,
Good for you for not listening to that person.
Yeah, so I was advised in high school that I wasn't college material because I came from the wrong side of the tracks because I came from a broken home, and that college was for people who came from a two-parent home. And so it yeah,
Wow.
and so yeah, I went on and started at the community college, transferred, finished my bachelor's, my master's, got postgraduate work there, and my doctorate, and so forth and so on, and graduated summa cum laude.
What do you make
So
of this, Greg? What do
so
you
I
make of
guess I
this?
maybe was okay for college.
I'd say so. What do you make of this conversation now? I've been asking it lately because I see it come up all the time. You don't need college anymore. You can just get these skills on the side and go get a job, and college doesn't have value anymore. Then obviously there are people that say, no, you still should go get your college degree. There's this a growing a contingent of folks, and you see these companies, ed tech companies, and short-term training. I always say your brother Steve that runs real estate trainings on the side, and as everybody's offering some kind of online training because everybody's looking for skills development.
Mhm.
How do you navigate through that when you're a student looking at college, and is there still value in the college education?
Yes and no. I'll answer that question slightly differently. There is definitively value in post-secondary education, uh, training, and earning a credential. The question is, people get that confused with meaning that you have to get a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree or a doctorate or something to that effect. No, it is absolutely not essential to go to college to get a degree, but it is essential that 7 out of 10 jobs now require some level of post-secondary education credential. So it may mean that you get an industry credential or a certification or some type of non-degree skill set that's necessary for you to be successful in your career, but it doesn't mean necessarily that you have to have a degree. There are certainly pathways that require the degree, but those pathways are not for everyone. What we have to look at is we have to look at the students individually and what is their goal. And then we help them achieve that goal by focusing on the type of education or training that they need. And a lot of that comes down to what we do in workforce development. So, we may only, for example, we have unique programs here such as meat processing and meat cutting, preparation and butchery. And so students come to us and those classes are, I think about, it's just a few weeks. And so they're able to come out of that with a certification to work in those areas, and that's critical. Mesa Lands is known nationally as for our renewable energy programs here. We train 5 forms of renewable energy. We have our own wind turbine on campus that we train in wind energy. We have 9 acres of solar. We work with a number of other forms of alternative energy, and people come from all over the world to learn about these. And we provide customized training to companies like General Electric, who are installing wind turbines all over, as well as the world's largest wind farm is being built in New Mexico, and we provide the training for that. Did that require degrees? No, it doesn't. It requires certifications and training. And so do they get some college credit for that? They can, or they don't have to. So we're able to adapt, and that's where education is going, is that we have to learn to adapt to the students' needs, that everybody is not in a cookie cutter. And that's where real, where it really all comes down to is that we have to look at what the student's goal is, and then how do we best help them achieve that goal. It may be with a degree, or it may not be.
Erica, you have any last questions before we go to the final 2?
Yeah, I know that you are that Mesa Lands Community College is involved with the Collaborative for Higher Education Shared Services. Seems like more and more, so many community colleges are trying to do more with less, pool their resources. Can you tell us a little bit about what CHESS is and what you're doing, and how that will help support student success?
Certainly. I'm very proud to talk to you about Chess. I'm fortunate to be on the board of directors of Chess, and there are 6 independently governed community colleges. We are all totally independent. And at this point in time, 6 of us have joined together. The presidents of those colleges all serve on the board of directors, and Chess has its own organizational structure where we share common resources. For example, financial systems, payroll systems, HR systems, IT systems, IT security, these types of things. And this is a huge benefit for us because it prevents all of us from duplicating 6 times these services. And we work together then as a board of directors to grow this within Chess. Chess is becoming increasingly popular in New Mexico, but Chess is even becoming more increasingly popular nationwide. So we're getting requests from all over the country to look at this model of using shared services, which actually, at the end of the day, provides better student support. And that's really, where it's going. So yeah, Chess is an amazing innovation that really, I think, is foreshadowing the future of higher ed and how we can remain independent and provide the services that we need and to be able to support our students most effectively. And I think that we're going to be seeing more and more of that, even more as other colleges choose to try to join Chess and become part of the group. So yeah, Chess is great. Currently, just it's focused on some New Mexico colleges, Central New Mexico Community College, Santa Fe Community College, San Juan Community College, of course Mesa Lands, Clovis Community College, and see, was that 5 or 6? There's 6 of us. And whoever I'm forgetting, I'm going to get in trouble
Whoever
for.
you forgot, just tell that president you can come on or she can come on the EdUp experience.
That's right. Whoever I
Yes, whoever.
forgot. Yeah, CNM, Santa Fe, San Juan, Clovis.
I'm sure there's a website you can check out all of them.
There is, and it's called www.chess.edu.
.com or .org?
I think it's an edu. But
Is it edu? Okay,
could
we'll
be.
check it out.
Absolutely, do that.
Well, Greg, we like to ask our guests a final 2 questions at the end of every episode, and you kind of talked about it a little bit. But number 1, what did we miss about Mesa Lands Community College? Anything you want to say? Events going on? Announcements you want to make? Anything here live on the EdUp experience that nobody else knows? And number 2, what do you see as the future of higher education?
Sure, absolutely. Well, you would expect if you have the president of Mesa Lands on, it's my job to be the cheerleader for the school. So I'll, of course, emphasize the fact that we're very proud of what we do. We are a Hispanic serving school and a school of excellencia in education. And so we focus a lot on what we can do to support our Hispanic community. Look us up. It's www.mesalands.edu. We're very proud of the unique programs we have. We have nationally all of our athletic programs. We have residential housing, but all of our athletic programs are nationally conferenced programs. So we're members of the NJCAA. We're part of NIRA, which is for our rodeo team, which is ranked top in the nation. And as well as probably one of the most exciting things happening now in the athletics world is we're within JCAA for our esports team. So we have an amazing development within esports. We have an amazing population of students, and we have probably one of the highest per capita faculty with advanced degrees, doctoral degrees. We also have the 3rd highest ranked paleontology program in the nation. I believe it number 1 and number 2 may be Stanford and Yale, and then it's Mesa Lands. Because here in New Mexico, where we are, This is a hotbed for fossilized remains for paleontology. So as a result,
We
Mesa Lands
just
also,
learned something today. I'll tell you that. I
yeah.
had no idea.
Well, you want to learn more? Come to Mesa Lands, because we have
Nice. Good
we
transition.
have a standalone Mesa Lands Community College dinosaur museum where all the dinosaur artifacts are brought together, as well as other artifacts. And it's a natural science laboratory, so you can actually watch the scientists. We have a PhD paleontologist on residency here for the last 19 years, leading our paleontology program. And you want to study dinosaurs and paleontology and the prehistoric eras, this is the place to come. And yeah, many great things, great athletics, great housing, wonderful little historic town. We're very proud of what we have going on here at Mesa Lands. And
what do you see as the future of higher education?
the future of higher ed has changed. Okay, so what we knew of higher ed 5 years ago is not going to be higher ed in the future. It's changed for a number of reasons. Certainly, the first thing that everybody will throw at us is that it changed because of the pandemic, and that's true. It did. But the pandemic changed everything. It changed every business and industry to learn that we don't always have to be in the office to be able to be efficient employees. So it also taught students that they don't always have to come to be on campus to be able to be effective students. So how we look at the future of how we deliver is now changed. We have to be very thoughtful and deliberate about the way that we modify the way we provide our education, deliver our education, what education has to be actually on campus to get that hands-on experience, as well as what we can deliver in either some type of synchronous or asynchronous models. There's different ways in which we can do that. But I think also we don't want to just throw it onto the pandemic. We have a tendency to want to say that and say, yeah, the future of education is going to change because of the pandemic. It changed because of attitudes as well. And also the expectations of the generation that we now deal with and are working with. They have different expectations. This is an information age of students, where in previous generations, we had to memorize everything. Today, we use their technology. I remember 20 years ago when I was in the classroom, the first thing you did is you told your students to turn off their cell phones and put them in their pockets. Today, when we walk into the classroom, we tell our students to take out your cell phones. And instead of standing there and lecturing at people, we actually engage them in a more of a Socratic way in which we throw questions out and we have them Googling up the responses and then being able to evaluate those sources to be able to determine what's considered a viable source to answer information, because the information is at their fingertips. So it's not about teaching that information, it's about how to apply it and integrate it into their lives and be able to evaluate what's valid and reliable information, and being able to look at the future for education. So technology, the changes we have, the changes in the generations, certainly the pandemic had an effect, but higher ed you either bury your head in the sand like an ostrich and pretend it's going to come back the way it was and become a dinosaur, or you adapt.
Good reach back on that one.
I did. It was good, wasn't it?
That was.
And or you adapt and you adjust to the future.
Speaking of adapting and adjusting to the future, I couldn't be more honored and happy to have the both of you together. Both futurists. Erica, is there anything else that you want to say?
This is so fun.
I had to do it.
This really was fun. I have
It
to
was.
say, it wasn't just fun, it was energizing. I always get so much energy from these conversations with community college presidents, because I think you all are among the most passionate people out there. So you bring so much passion and energy to your work. So I'm just so grateful to be part of this conversation today, and want to just say thank you, Gregg, for the great work that you're doing and the obvious care and compassion that you bring to your work and to your students. It's obviously having a huge ripple of impact, as we talked about a few minutes ago. So thank you.
You guys are good reaching back to previous statements. Well done. She's Erica Leodis, and she is Executive Director for the Alliance for Innovation and Transformation. Erica, thanks. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And of course, my bow tie wielding, bow tie wearing, eloquent word. Let me see if eloquent word wielding. See if you could say that 3 times fast. Yes, today he's Dr. Gregg Busch, and he is president of Mesa Lands Community College. Gregg, did you have good EdUp experience today?
Hey, guys, this was wonderful. I really enjoyed this opportunity to have this discussion with you. And I certainly hope that those folks who are enjoying this podcast were able to get some good information about the future and why it's so important that the community colleges are doing the work that we're doing. So I just want to thank you both for the opportunity to be able to, as Eric has said, to be able to share my passion. And so thank you both. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. Loved it.
Thank you, sir. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Effective marketing for educational institutions requires a dedicated partner that understands the complex, constantly evolving digital landscape in which colleges, universities, and career schools compete. The EdUp Experience podcast partner, Advanced 360 Education, is a data-focused digital marketing company with proven positive outcomes for educational institutions. Advanced 360 Education does not simply rely on instinct to make assumptions about audiences or key data points. Through data intelligence, client strategies take on a higher level of effectiveness, whether the goal is driving enrollment, alumni engagement, or other educational marketing campaigns. To learn more, visit a360education.com or call Anthony Espinoza at 310-704-5369. That's Anthony Espinoza, 310-704-5369, a360education.com.